Alright, here we are today with another 5 sheet. This one from foxnews.com. Remember, the 5 sheet is an objective document which you can use to analyze any news article, cut through all the fakery they might throw at you, try to make your own informed decisions, extract any useful information out of the article, and avoid any of the manipulative tactics they might throw at you. So let's get started. The headline is They Write It. Trump urged Georgia election official to, quote, find votes in phone call, insisting he won, report. So what is that title? I wrote that was a fact. Not much editorialization going on there. How did I paraphrase it? According to a report, Trump urged an election official to, quote, find votes in a phone call while insisting that he won. Alright, what's the bias? This is Fox News. I have that establishment right. It's not on the left. It's not a populist organization. This is establishment right. Alright, let's go find the thesis. Zoom in a little bit so we can see. It's right in this first paragraph. Trump insisted that he won the state during a phone call with Raffensperger, urging him to find those votes. So what is that thesis? I put that was a fact too. Pretty straight down the line. How did I paraphrase it? Trump insisted he won Georgia during a phone call with Raffensperger, reportedly urging him to, quote, find enough votes to reverse the state's election results. And what evidence do they have supporting that thesis? So they do cite to the Washington Post story, who were the first guys to report on this leaked phone call. And then they also have this little quote. All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. So that's all the evidence I could find directly supporting their thesis. And let's see next how they structured this article. So they start out with that thesis, then they have the evidence in those two parts, the citation and the quote. Then they mention the official vote count. What he asked for was one more vote than he had won it by, which is what he said, one more than we have. Then they go into these tweets about the phone call. They have Trump's tweet that he did the day after the phone call, but shortly before the phone call was leaked. And then they have Raffensperger's response to that. Next up, they have this little description of Raffensperger's interview on Fox News Sunday, where he continued to dispute the president's position, saying there were not enough irregularities to overturn the Georgia election. And then we have some responses by third parties. First one being in support of Trump by Jason Miller, Trump campaign senior advisor. And then they have this other quote on the other side by a Democratic Senator, Dick Durbin. Next up, they have a little, where is it? They have this little paragraph describing how this is just before the runoffs, the Senate runoffs, which everyone is looking at and talking about how this can color those elections. Well, not really talking about that, but putting this here for that context. Then they give a little history as to Trump's legal challenges. And finally, they talk about what might happen on January 6th, about how Ted Cruz is leading some senators, and how there are many House Republicans likely to object. Alright, so that was the outline. Not a super long article, but a lot of bullet points there. Sort of, all over the place. Kind of a bit rambly there. Alright, let's get into the named deception tactics. The one I have listed here is the straw man feigning ignorance. So let's look at this beginning section. This looks a little bit weird. So, they say this phone call was published in full online Sunday. So if that's true, then the writers of this article have access to the entire phone conversation. And at the same time, they're writing that President reportedly says, and then just a direct quote from the phone call. President reportedly urged him to, direct quote from the phone call. So what is reportedly referring to there? Did they not listen to the call? So are they just relying on the reporting of the Washington Post for the contents of the call? Is that what it is? Like, well, according to the reporting of the Washington Post, this was in the phone call. Is that what reportedly says? Because they just didn't listen to the audio that was published online? Or is it that they're using the word reportedly, like, yeah, we listened to the phone call and it kind of sounds like he says this, but you never know these days. So we're just going to put reportedly, like, Washington Post says this is Trump talking to Raffensperger, but we don't know. So we're just going to say reportedly this is Trump saying this to Raffensperger. So in other words, is that doubting the authenticity of the audio recording? That's not clear. Either way, it's weird, it's shaky, it doesn't line up. They should at least have an explanation here. That is sloppy journalism. And that brings me into the last point. What are the big picture takeaways here? What do I think they were doing with this article? I think this was an attempt to make a down the middle report of the story, but it was rushed and ended up looking amateurish. That little piece I just described is one example. Another example is this one here, where they have this tweet embedded in part of the story complaining, they only published 4 minutes and 31 seconds. Where are the other stories? Or where are the other minutes? Blah, blah, blah. Well, according to the beginning of this article, they have published the entire phone call. So that's another little internal inconsistency that is likely just from this article being rushed. They should at least have a note in there. They should have something right here that says, like, Jason Miller's tweet came out before the full audio was published. It doesn't even say here that, it just says which they published in full online Sunday. It doesn't say that they published this short snippet and then sometime later published it in full Sunday. So it's really not clear what's going on. That feels just like sloppiness to me. So that also brings into question, what is Senator Durbin responding to? Did he listen to the full phone call, or is he just listening to that selectively edited snippet? Because also that 4 minutes and 31 seconds is not a solid block of audio. There are jump cuts in that. So it's really hard to understand what's going on, to give proper context to the content of that call. So yeah, it really does. All that evidence in my mind is pointing more towards haste and sloppiness. I don't if there was some kind of bias here, I don't see what it is. I don't see what they're trying to accomplish. And the last note I have just kind of caught my eye. The way this is framed, this Raffensperger tweet, the truth will come out, the truth will come out, it just kind of feels like it's center stage as you're strolling through this. It almost feels like they're implying that he was behind the leak, which is a story a claim I've seen repeated in other places. So maybe that's something they're trying to, a notion they want to amplify, or they want to stoke that fire, at least to a certain audience, without coming out and saying it. So that's unclear, but that was just kind of caught my eye. Sort of felt that way. Overall, it felt, a little bit weird, and I think the reason here was just the haste and sloppiness explains this better than anything else. But hey, let me know if I missed anything. If you think there was an explanation as to a certain bias that drove this, that drove all these issues we're seeing in the article, please do drop it in a comment, or better yet, fill out your own 5-sheet on this and explain all your bias away. All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next one.